the systems of that govern us and run us are all breaking down.
Today's guest is someone who's actually known, but there's unknown things about him. Today's guest is Rainn Wilson, who's been in movies and TV shows. And instead of adopting fame and just checking out on a beach, Rainn's actually running away from fame and really is seeking to have deep conversations that connect people. So he's a perfect guest for this show. So today, we're going to talk about someone who's known, but who has something unknown to share. Here's Rainn. Who's Rainn? Like, you know, you talk about this sort of dichotomy of you as a sitcom actor, published author, but then kind of going on this soul journey, this soul boom. Give me a sense of that. Why?
Well, how much time you got?
Well, we got, unlike that CBS clip last week, by the way, they had 3 people interviewing you. There's only one right here, pal. One.
Okay, only one.
And we got all the time in the world, and I ain't going to bring up sitcoms. So there you go.
It's fine to bring up sitcoms. So who am I? Great question. I'm an actor. First and foremost, that's what I'll always be. We acted in plays together. Were we in Oklahoma?
You were Judd, and I think I was Curly.
So we have shared the stage, you and I. So you know me as an actor, and then, you know, I spent, I got out of NYU in around 1990 and have been acting nonstop since. And over that period of time, kind of gained an ever more gradual and intense interest in conversations around, for lack of a better word, spirituality. And we can define terms on that later if we want. And using spiritual tools for mental health and using spiritual tools and discussing kind of wisdom and faith traditions as a means of making the world a better place. And this is something I've read a lot about and studied a lot about and been writing more and more about. So I'm a storyteller as an actor. I'm an artist, but I'm also a conversationalist in the public square, seeking to, maybe like you, bring people together and bridge divides by talking about the commonality of our spiritual reality.
What intrigued me was sort of the discussion around your parents, right? And they're sort of, I think your quote was something muddling with love or something like that, trying to do their best, but not really getting there. So talk to me a little bit about your parental experience.
Well, so part of this bigger conversation about spirituality has to do with my upbringing as a member of the Baha'i faith. And as you remember from the North Shore of Chicago, I was a security guard over there at the Baha'i Temple that one summer. And the Baha'i National Center is in Evanston. My parents worked there. So I grew up a member of a faith tradition that is very much about love and peace and unity. And what I talk about in the book is that disconnect between what we believed and purported to believe and in our family's actions. So my parents really did not love each other and were in essentially a really negative, unloving marriage. It wasn't like wife beating and throwing sharp knives at each other kind of thing, but hollow, not disconnected. I asked my stepmom, my mom took off when I was about 2 years old. So it was my dad and my stepmom. And I asked them when they knew they really weren't a match, when they weren't right for each other. And they both said, within 6 months of getting married, they knew that they really should not have been married. So that will screw you up, as does, my mom taking off when I was 2 years old, and I didn't really get to know her again until I was about 15. And when I was older, in my 20s after college, I started to have what I know now to be mental health issues. So I had many years of really serious anxiety attacks. I had dependence on drugs and alcohol, and I had depression and alienation and loneliness, and just a lot of disconnects. And that I had left the Baha'i faith. I'd left everything to do with religion and faith and God and morality and the soul and the meaning of life and stuff like that to go be an actor in New York City. But that was around the time in my late 20s that I started to explore the possibility of a spiritual way out of my anguish and my pain.
In the Baha'i faith, I shared this with you. I never forgot it from high school, by the way. I think we had a conversation in one of the hallways. And I think I might have inquired about your faith because I have my own faith journey. And you said, oh, I'm a Baha'i. I said, that's very interesting. Explain that to me. And you talked about in sincere ways, right? You weren't gangly, you weren't awkward, you weren't acting, you were just genuine as can be. And you just said that, the basis of the Baha'i faith is that all religions start off clean, and like a river over time, they sort of get muddied by human interference and human detriment, et cetera. I was like, wow, it's pretty deep, man. Let's go get some lunch. But I think the unity of Baha'i is something that is very intriguing, right? This sort of clarion call that we are similar. Let's find the unity. And also seems to be just a general acknowledgement of all religions, right? So Christ or Buddha or Muhammad all share a special place in the Baha'i faith. Is that, am I accurately describing it?
You aces, you can A triple plus. That was right on the money. Yeah, as a Baha'i, I'm a Christian because I believe in the divinity and sanctity of Jesus Christ, the Son of the Father. As a Baha'i, I'm also a Buddhist, and I recognize the divinity of the awakened one, the Buddha, the enlightened one, and his teachings. I'm also a Muslim, and I'm because I acknowledge the essential divinity of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and that all of these faith traditions, although seemingly dissimilar on the surface in so many ways, when you dig deeper, have universal kind of pillars that support them that have to do with the illusory nature of the world, of increasing love and increasing service, that we are spiritual beings inhabiting these meat suits for a handful of decades, and so much more. There are universalities there that we often disregard. So the thesis of Soul Boom, the book, is that the systems of that govern us and run us are all breaking down and are unsustainable because they are based on the worst aspects of humanity. So you talk to anyone who works in healthcare, you talk to anyone who works in education, you talk to anyone who works in agriculture, just as three examples, and they'll tell you about how broken the systems are. And people are pulling their hair out. Talk to a school teacher, talk to a nurse. How money's being misappropriated, how the government isn't working correctly, how whether it's hospitals or schools and or giant mono farms, how they're how taxes work, none of it's working. And the reason I think that it's not working is because all of our systems, including, of course, our partisan political system, are based on the worst aspects of humanity. They're based on greed, one-upsmanship, backstabbing, every man for himself, trying to increase social status. And the argument of the book is, hey, what would it be like to recalibrate our systems based on spiritual ideas? And before anyone listening collectively like rolls their eyes, oh, well, how's that going to work? There's a bunch of ways to do this. And one of the ways is to reinvent the mythology of humanity, because the current contemporary mythology of humanity is that world peace is never going to be possible because humans are too aggressive and too selfish. And you're a fool to think that we're ever going to have world peace. All we're going to have is a kind of detente between certain powers, whether it's Democrats and Republicans or whether it's Russia and China and the West. And we're just going to live with this kind of like detente armed to the teeth. And that's just how it's going to go until the end of time. There's another mythology of humanity, which is that, and social scientists are discovering this more and more, that actually when Darwin was talking about survival of the fittest in terms of species, really what Darwin meant was survival of the species that fit in the best. When you look at the species that really thrive, they're the ones, it's not like the strongest ones. It's not like the little dinosaur gets eaten by the medium-sized dinosaur gets eaten by the larger dinosaur. It's really about, the cockroach that just fits into the dinosaur landscape so perfectly. And the same is with humans. The tribes that survived for the longest amounts of time were not necessarily the ones that conquered the others. It wasn't always the Mongol Empire and the Roman Empire. There's also long tradition of human tribes, species, city-states that lived for, I said species, forget species, but cities that lived for thousands of years because they were good at trade. They were good at bargaining. They were good at cooperating. They were good at collaborating. And there's a whole other mythology that human societies thrived, that were able to adapt and collaborate and respond. So I do believe that humans have an ability to get along, love one another, have compassion for one another, and live together in peace. We do have that capacity, and we have the capacity to change systems to reflect that inherent aspect of humanity.
Yeah, I think those are all excellent points. I mean, I think that part of this show, right, in its small way, and what you're doing that intrigues me greatly is this sense of, in order to get there, we have to understand the similarities that we have, right? There seems to be just movement upon movement to balkanize everybody into their own subgroups of subgroups of subgroups that cause tension because I'm this, you don't understand me, and therefore you'll never understand me, right? Well, that doesn't get us anywhere. But I think I'm just, in my smallness is sort of my sanctity as a human. Like I just look at the universe, right? As I mentioned before, the Sirius star is written in the Quran, it's in the Bible, we all share not only similar things about us, but our own world. So at least let's try for 5 minutes to talk about similarities. Maybe that'll get us to a point where we talk about policy, we're not so strident to be right.
Yeah, in the Baha'i faith, there was a letter recently from the governing council of the Baha'i faith, because there's no clergy in the Baha'i faith, so there's no pope or gurus or rabbis or mullahs or anything like that. And it was saying that Baha'is should always strive to find that precious point of unity between people. And one example of that has to do with climate change. And I was talking to this climate change organizer, and he said, whenever I work on climate change, I work on clean air, because no matter who you are, what side of the political spectrum you're on, everyone wants clean air. They all know someone with asthma. They don't want smog in the air. People like the idea of clean air. Well, guess what? If you really are working towards clean air, then you're going to start limiting CO2, and you're going to start, helping to heal climate change by limiting CO2. But you're not coming out of the gate saying, we need to limit CO2, and then that becomes this flash topic and this hot button issue of like, well, I don't believe in the science and that's a liberal conspiracy and blah, blah, blah. You can just say, hey, we want our kids to have a planet with clean air. Let's just work on clean air, however, whatever that means.
When will you know this work has moved the needle? Like what sort of objective sort of criteria are you establishing to know, you know what, that one person changed their life? Or do you have a grander sort of data set you're looking at?
That's a great question. And I haven't been very successful. The book's been out for, 13 months now, and I haven't sparked a spiritual revolution. But I guess what I'm trying to do is if I can get a few more thousand or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of especially young people thinking about spirituality in just a slightly different way, then I will have succeeded. Because to a lot of people, spirituality is kind of this woo-woo crystals and incense kind of set of tools that just makes you feel better and increases serenity and decreases anxiety. At a yoga class or a meditation or reading an inspirational quote or something like that. To a lot of people, spirituality is synonymous with church and going to church on Sunday. And there's not really a separation between spirituality and religion. So to get people to think about spirituality in a larger context, that we are all, again, I just keep coming back to this phrase, that we're all spiritual beings having a human experience, that widens it. Whether you're Christian or Jewish or Buddhist, that is true. And this unites us. And there are tools to be found in these wisdom traditions that can make our lives better, individually and collectively. So if I can just get young people, office fans, having those kind of conversations by a few more thousand, then I'll have succeeded. And by that measure, I already have succeeded. And even if people disagree, that's fine. It's, but let's have the conversation.
Well, Rainn, it has been an utmost pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing what's in your soul. And I hope our conversations can continue, because I'm vastly interested in how your journey develops. And thank you for being interested in bringing people to get to know people and then talk about policy, however that's defined. I think it's a noble cause. And some of your second best work, your children and your long marriage being the first.
And let's not forget Dwight Schrute in that mix.
It's not forget Dwight Schrute.
I think the best way for us to leave this podcast is for you to sing a little bit of Curly from Oklahoma.
Poor Judd is Dead. Do you want to give us a few bars of that?
Oh, we had a duet.
But you didn't sing that.
No, we had a duet.
We did?